It started as an ordinary evening in the old Victorian house I had just moved into. I was renting it for cheap while I worked on my novel, and the charm of its creaky floors and vintage charm was irresistible. The house stood at the edge of a quiet neighborhood, surrounded by leafless trees that seemed to whisper when the wind blew. That night, the rain pattered against the windows, and the wind howled softly. I was sitting at my desk in the study, typing away, when the first sound broke the quiet. It was faint. A soft thud, like someone had dropped a book in the hallway outside the study. I paused, listening. The house was old, I reasoned, and old houses creak and groan, don't they? Shaking it off, I returned to my work, the glow of the laptop screen my only source of light. But then, it came again, a louder thud this time, followed by the distinct sound of something dragging across the wooden floor. My heart began to race. I turned off my music to listen more closely. "Hello?" I called out, half expecting to hear the sound of footsteps retreating or perhaps even a reply, but there was nothing, just silence. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped into the hallway. The air felt colder out here, unnaturally so. My breath puffed out in small clouds as I swept the flashlight beam along the hallway. At the far end, just before the staircase, something caught my eye. It was faint, almost a trick of the light, a shadow darker than the rest of the dim hallway. It didn't move, didn't flicker like you'd expect from a shadow cast by a tree swaying outside. It just stood there. I stepped closer, the wooden floor creaking under my feet. "Who's there?" I called, trying to keep my voice steady. The shadow didn't reply. It didn't move. As I got closer, I realized it wasn't just a shadow. It had form, a tall, humanoid silhouette, but it lacked any discernible features. No eyes, no mouth, just a void in the shape of a person. I froze. Every instinct in me screamed to turn around, to run, but my feet refused to move. Then, slowly, it started to shift. Not walking, not floating, but gliding closer. Panic surged through me. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight. The beam wavered as I backed away, but the shadow seemed unaffected. It grew closer and closer, and as it did, I felt an oppressive weight settle over me, like the air itself was thickening. I turned and bolted back into the study, slamming the door shut behind me. My heart was hammering in my chest as I shoved a chair under the doorknob. For a moment, all was silent again. I stood there, trembling, listening for any sound from the hallway. Just when I thought I had imagined it all, the doorknob rattled. My breath caught. It wasn't a loud rattle, just a soft, deliberate turn, as though someone, or something, was testing it. Then came the knock, slow, deliberate, echoing in the stillness of the house. I backed away from the door, my hands trembling. The knocking stopped, but the oppressive weight in the air remained. I didn't sleep that night. The shadow never entered the room, but I felt it outside the door, waiting. By morning, the feeling was gone, the hallway empty and the house eerily quiet again. I moved out the next day, leaving behind my belongings and my unfinished novel. The landlord wasn't surprised when I handed over the keys. "You're not the first to leave after a few days," he said with a grim smile. "This house has a way of getting under your skin." Now, every night before bed, I double-check my locks and keep a flashlight nearby. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I still feel that weight, like something is watching from the shadows, waiting to be noticed.